Hello folks, welcome back to the third and final video in this series focusing on Tanqueray and Tanqueray number 10, including signature serve on Tanqueray 10 and a couple of different compound syrups. Today we're going to take a look at the Clover Club cocktail, how to make a nice fresh raspberry syrup, and we're going to be using Tanqueray as the vessel for our understanding. And we haven't specifically looked at Tanqueray in this video series so far, we really looked at Tanqueray number 10, but in that first video, link up here, we could see that I mentioned the classic 4 Tanqueray botanicals, and there are 4, and they are juniper, of course, has to be in every single gin. We're going to have coriander seed, which is going to give us illusions of citrus. We're going to have licorice, which gives us anise, but also gives us a little bit of mouthfeel texture. We'd often describe it as being distiller's sugar, a natural sweetness. And then of course, Angelica root. Tanqueray London Dry specifically is 43.1% at export strength, and it's the perfect gin for mixing classic cocktails. So it would make sense to us today to be making a classic cocktail with this, and that drink is going to be the Clover Club. Now, to make a Clover Club cocktail, there are many ways of making this. But for me, for speed and ease of service, the easiest way to do this is to make a nice, fresh raspberry syrup. You could, of course, throw some raspberries in there and muddle them up and shake them into the cocktail. But for me, that would be time-consuming, messy, and a little inconsistent. So the raspberry syrup I'm going to teach you how to make in this video is easy, there's not much mess to it, and it can be stored in the well, nice and cold and ready for service at your convenience. With syrups in the past that we've made, we've talked about cooking them down when we made ginger syrup. We've talked about heating them up when we make honey syrup. But for me, with raspberries, they're nice and delicate and fresh with a level of acidity that we need to maintain. So what we're going to do is use nice fresh raspberries. We're going to add them again into our sous vide bag. Because when we add the sugar to this and we throw them into the sous vide, it's going to stew that fruit, but it's not going to overcook it. It's not going to burn it. We're not going to get any Maillard reaction from the sugars starting to caramelize. And all we're going to do is sweeten up that nice fresh raspberry. So in this bag, I have 200 grams of beautiful raspberries, and I'm going to add 200 grams of granulated white sugar. White sugar because it's flavorless, and all we're looking to do is support the raspberries with some nice sweetness. We're going to close this bag up. I'm going to put it into the vacuum pack machine. We're going to put it into the sous vide for an hour, and then we're going to filter and strain it out, ready for service. Now, this has been vacuum packed up. We've sucked all of the air out of this bag. What you can see already is there's been a level of compression from the vacuum, and it started to squash those raspberries, and some of the juices come out, and you can already see it's absorbing into the actual sugar itself. Shouldn't take long for this to cook in the sous vide. Now, a few interesting perspectives on this style of syrup. You can, of course, use fresh raspberries as I've used today, or you can use frozen raspberries if you're concerned about cost of goods, etc. You can also buy your frozen raspberries in bulk, meaning that once they're out of season in your area, you still have some left if this is a high-selling cocktail on your cocktail menu. We're going to put this in the sous vide, we're going to leave it for about an hour, we're going to strain it out, and then we'll get back to making a classic Clover Club cocktail. Okay, so we've got our nice, fresh filtered raspberry syrup here. As you can see, I've filtered it out just through a basket strainer like you would use behind the bar. Nothing crazy, just to get the pips out, get any pith out, and get any soluble and solid material out of our syrup. So we're going to start by making a Clover Club cocktail. Our ingredients would be our fresh, beautiful red raspberry syrup, lemon juice, a little bit of dry vermouth, some classic Tanqueray London Dry gin, and then some egg white for texture. And we're going to add these in a particular ratio and a particular order of service. I'm going to start with some of our raspberry syrup. I'm going to add 15 mils of raspberry syrup. That's going to give it that beautiful pink color. Next, I'm going to be adding in about 30 mils of lemon juice, freshly squeezed, of course. 15 mils of dry Italian vermouth. That's going to give it some aromatics. It's going to boost the aromatics of our gin, and it's going to give it a little bit of bitterness and delicate aroma as well. 45 mils of Tanqueray London Dry gin. And then finally, we're going to add about 15 to 20 mils of egg white. Now, this has already been pre-whisked. It's nice fresh egg, and we're adding it right at the end, because if we added it at the start, what would happen is the alcohol and the citrus would start to cook those proteins, and we end up with a little bit of a mess in our tin. We're going to give this a dry shake, of course, to emulsify all of that egg white and create a nice meringue-like foam. Just short and sharp. just enough so everything mixes in. We're then going to add our fresh ice. As you can see, I pre-chilled my glass. Very important. We're going to give this a nice hard shake to wake everything up and pull everything together. Now, should there be any shell, any pith, anything in here which is extraneous material we do not want in our beautiful, delicate crystal coupette glass here, we're going to strain it out through our basket filter. I'm going to dip this into the glass and strain very delicately. And as you see the drink, will start to develop a nice white cap on the top as the egg white floats to the top, taking any soluble material with it. And then we can garnish this very delicately with those nice fresh raspberries we started the whole process with. And we drop them into the glass on a nice silver pick, like so. That is the Clover Club cocktail with beautiful Tanqueray London Dry Gin. One final thing you might want to consider when you're making fruit syrups in particular, because adding sugar to fruit and it getting potentially inoculated with yeast during use, it may start to ferment quite quickly. Adding a small amount of neutral grain spirit, such as vodka, to your syrup will not compromise the flavor of it so much, but will make sure that it lasts a little bit longer. And absolutely, please keep it stored in a cool environment such as the refrigerator at night when you're not on shift.